Hi friends. Please subscribe and help me get my first 1,000 subscribers. It's one click for you, but for me it's a huge encouragement and motivation. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's go. I always thought I had the American dream on lockdown. I had the colonial in the suburbs, a solid family unit, and a career that paid the bills and then some. What else is there? My wife, Vanessa, is 35, and we've been riding this wave together for nearly a decade. We're raising 2 kids, our daughter, Mia, and my stepson, Noah. I adopted Noah when he was 5, and honestly, I do not even like using the word stepson. Yes, my boy, just as much as if I'd been there in the delivery room. Life was moving along the rails, and I did not see a single warning sign on the horizon. Our place was tucked away in a quiet, leafy corner of Connecticut, one of those towns where the lawns are manicured to within an inch of their lives. We had a spacious yard, plenty of room inside, and a nice deck where we'd hang out in the evenings, watching the kids chase fireflies. Vanessa was the picture-perfect mother and wife. Affectionate, attentive, the kind of woman who kept the whole operation running smoothly. We laughed a lot, planned our 401(k)s and vacations. Everything felt bulletproof. Vanessa's birthday fell on a humid Saturday in July. We decided to host a low-key backyard barbecue, invited a few friends, fired up the grill, ordered a custom cake from the local bakery. Vanessa was the life of the party, glowing, laughing at everyone's jokes, soaking up the attention. At one point, I ducked into the kitchen to grab another bottle of Pinot from the fridge. The evening had a nice, easy rhythm to it. But when I walked back out through the sliding glass doors, the deck was empty. No Vanessa, no guests. At first, I figured the heat had driven everyone inside through the front door, but after doing a sweep of the living room and dining room, I realized the house was dead silent. The yard, which had been full of noise just 60 seconds ago, was deserted. Where the hell is everyone? I thought, pulling my iPhone out of my pocket to call Vanessa. It rang and rang, going straight to voicemail. I walked out to the driveway. Cars were gone. A strange, cold pit started forming in my stomach. I kept redialing her number, but the result was the same, silence. Took hours before she finally picked up. "I am at my parents' place," she said. Her voice was ice cold, completely devoid of the warmth she'd shown just hours ago. In the background, I could hear the faint sound of a TV and the kids. Mia and Noah were with her. "What's going on? Why did you just take off like that?" I asked, my knuckles turning white as I gripped the phone. "I took the kids," she said flatly. "We need some space." The words hit me like a sucker punch. My brain was misfiring, too many questions, no answers. Everything I thought I knew about our marriage just evaporated. I did not waste time thinking about what I'd say. I just grabbed my keys and sprinted to the car. I was not going to let my family fall apart in an afternoon. The drive to her parents' house felt like an eternity. I was doing 80 down I-95, my mind racing. What did I do? Why is she pulling the plug? Flashbacks of us happy, at the beach, at Noah's graduation from elementary school, just played on a loop. I could not process that it might all be over. When I finally pulled into her parents' driveway, her dad opened the door. He looked grim, but not surprised, like he'd been expecting me. I pushed past him into the living room and saw Vanessa sitting on the sofa with the kids. She looked calm, but her eyes were different, guarded, like a stranger's. "Why are you here, David?" she asked. The tone was so detached it scared me. This was not the Vanessa I knew. "I am here to take my family home," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me for a long beat, calculating, then shook her head. "We're staying here. It's better this way." The kids were playing with some toys on the floor, oblivious to the tension in the room. They were laughing, totally unaware that their world was cracking down the middle. I stood there, paralyzed. But I knew one thing. I was not walking away. I was not going to let my life collapse without a fight. Vanessa refused to talk further. I drove back to Connecticut that night feeling hollowed out, staring at the empty lane markers, wondering how a stable life could disintegrate so fast. I did not sleep a wink. The next few weeks were a blur of misery. With Vanessa and the kids gone, the house felt like a mausoleum. Every day without them felt like a month. The silence was deafening. But I did not give up. Family is everything to me. I swallowed my pride and eventually convinced them to come home, promising we'd work on whatever issues she felt we had. We tried to patch things up, but the dynamic had shifted. Life settled into a gray routine. Commute, work, home, repeat. The kids were the only bright spot. They were resilient, bouncing back to normal, but Vanessa, something had changed permanently. The warmth was gone. Her movements were sharp, her responses clipped. Then came the first real red flag. It was midsummer. Vanessa went to a work mixer organized by her colleagues. I could not go because I was pulled into a massive project launch and had to work the graveyard shift remotely. When I clocked out and came downstairs the next morning, I found Vanessa passed out on the sectional. She looked wrecked, eyes bloodshot, clearly had not slept. But what stopped me in my tracks were the scratches on her back. Long, red marks, visible above the strap of her tank top. "What happened to you?" I asked, pointing at her back. "It's nothing," she snapped, waving me off without making eye contact. I scratched it on some branches in the backyard. Her voice was defensive. Branches? It sounded like total BS, but I did not press it. I told myself I was being paranoid. Accidents happen, I thought, but that seed of doubt planted itself right in my gut, and it started to grow. Over the next month, our intimacy completely evaporated. If we were in the same room, it was awkward silence or petty arguments. Vanessa was glued to her phone constantly. She guarded it like it was the nuclear launch codes. Every time I tried to bring up the distance between us, she'd de-gaslight me, change the subject, or storm off to check on the laundry. By late summer, the tension was unbearable. I noticed how jumpy she got whenever her phone buzzed. She'd drift into the pantry or the garage to take a call from a girlfriend. One night, I finally snapped. "Are you sure everything is okay, Vanessa?" She flared up instantly. "Of course it's okay. Are you seriously jealous of my phone now? God, David, get a grip." The sarcasm dripped off her words. I am not a jealous guy by nature, but her behavior was textbook suspicious. I could feel her drifting further and further away, and it was driving me crazy. September rolled around, and my job required another stretch of night shifts. I was used to the grind, but now, leaving the house at night made me feel sick. One evening, sitting in my car in the parking lot before my shift started, I decided to text her. I needed to bridge the gap. I typed out, "We need to talk. About us. About what's going on." Radio silence. No reply after an hour. No reply after 2. When I got home the next morning, Vanessa was already up. But something felt off. The bed was made, but not slept in. "Where were you last night?" I asked, trying to keep it casual. She rolled her eyes. "I was with Jessica. I had to drop off some cash I owed her. We talked about it, remember?" She said it so smoothly, but my stomach dropped. Cash? In the age of Venmo? I knew she was lying to my face, but I did not have a smoking gun. A few days later, the other shoe dropped. We were out for a walk with the kids, and Mia, innocent as ever, tugged on my hand. "Daddy, Mommy went out at night, but she came back super fast." That innocent comment hit me like a freight train. I started watching her like a hawk. The discrepancies in her stories were piling up. Then, one Saturday morning while we were deep cleaning the house, I walked into the kitchen and saw her phone sitting unlocked on the counter. She stepped out to the garage. I did not think, I just acted. I picked it up. It took me about 5 seconds to find what would ruin my life. Text messages. Dozens of them. From a guy named Nick. Intimate photos. Messages saying, "I love you." Words she had not said to me in months. It dated back to July, right around the time of that work party. I froze, standing in my own kitchen, feeling like the floor had just opened up beneath me. The picture was finally clear. I froze, feeling my insides twist into a tight, sickening not. The situation was undeniable now. The anxiety in my chest flared up like a slow burn. I could no longer ignore the little things I'd brushed off before. Every word out of Vanessa's mouth sounded synthetic. Every move she made felt calculated. She was hiding something massive, but I needed to know the full extent of it. One evening, late, after Mia and Noah were sound asleep upstairs, Vanessa suddenly started getting ready. She did not say a word, just threw on a light jacket, grabbed her keys off the kitchen island, and headed for the mudroom. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to keep the rising panic out of my voice. "Jessica's." She threw over her shoulder, not breaking stride. "She's having a crisis. I'll be back late, do not wait up." The door clicked shut before I could ask a single follow-up question. I sat there alone in the living room, staring at the blank 60-inch TV screen. Jessica's? It sounded like a bad script. Those late-night emergency runs used to be rare, but lately, they were becoming a weekly ritual. I could not just sit there and take it anymore. I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and hesitated. Then, a thought took root in my mind. It's time to stop being the nice guy. Sit here and do nothing? Hell no. That part of my life was over. I grabbed my hoodie, walked out to the driveway, and got into my truck. My pulse was hammering in my ears like a drum line. I knew Vanessa had left, but I did not know where. But instinct took over. I pulled out and headed toward the main highway, hoping my gut would lead me to the truth. I drove in total silence, white-knuckling the steering wheel, trying to keep a lid on my emotions. My mind was ping-ponging between our past and this nightmare present, looking for clues I'd missed. Suddenly, I saw taillights ahead. It was her SUV. She was pulling into the lot of a dive bar on the outskirts of town, one of those places with a flickering neon sign and a parking lot full of potholes. My heart stopped. I parked way back in the shadows, killing the engine to stay unnoticed. Vanessa got out and walked inside. This was not her scene. Vanessa was a wine bar and charcuterie kind of girl, not a draft beer and peanuts regular. I waited a few minutes, the silence of the car crushing me, my muscles coiled tight. "What are you doing here, Ness?" I asked myself over and over. Something told me the answer was waiting behind those heavy wooden doors. Finally, unable to sit still, I pulled my hood up, stepped out into the humid night air, and slipped into the bar, sticking to the back wall. The lighting was dim, the jukebox was blasting classic rock, but it was not loud enough to drown out the noise in my head. I scanned the room, looking for a familiar silhouette. There she was. She was sitting in a corner booth. And she was not alone. There was a guy with her, young, maybe late 20s, buzz cut, confident posture. "Nick." He reached across the table, and Vanessa's face lit up with a strange, almost familiar smile, the kind of smile I had not seen directed at me in years. I felt my world implode. The scene blurred in front of me. A wave of pure rage washed over me. But instead of storming over there and making a scene, a cold resolve settled in my chest. I was not going to blow this yet. I turned around, walked back out to the parking lot, and slumped down in my seat, watching the entrance. I needed to see how far this rabbit hole went. Hours passed. The wind picked up, cutting through the crack in my window. Finally, Vanessa and Nick stumbled out of the bar, laughing and talking like they were the only two people on earth. I watched as they walked to her car. Nick leaned in, cupping her cheek, and kissed her. She did not pull away. I squeezed the steering wheel so hard I thought it might snap. I could not believe I was watching my marriage disintegrate in real time, right there in a dive bar parking lot. But I held my ground. They got into her car. He left his there, and drove off. I followed them, keeping a safe distance, hunting them down like prey. They drove to a part of town I rarely visited. Her SUV pulled into the lot of a budget motel, the kind of place you pay for by the hour. Vanessa and Nick got out and she led him straight to a room. There was no doubt left. No misunderstanding. This was it. I sat in my truck, an emotional storm raging inside me. A million thoughts raced through my head, confronting them, smashing the door down, but I forced myself to breathe. I watched that motel door, counting the minutes. 30 minutes. An hour. 2 hours. My rage was building with every tick of the clock. But I knew if I lost control now, I'd lose everything. Suddenly, the door opened. Vanessa stepped out. Her hair was messy, her face looked tired, but there was a glint in her eyes I could not place. She walked briskly to her car and drove off toward the suburbs. I gave her a lead, then followed. I managed to take a shortcut and beat her home. I was sitting on the couch when she walked in. My hands were shaking, replays of the motel room flashing in my mind. When Vanessa walked through the door, her face was a mask of calm. She barely glanced at me. "You late," I said, my voice dangerously flat. "Yeah," she replied, kicking off her heels. Jessica really needed to talk. It was a whole thing. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. I knew I could not live this lie for one more second, but I was not going to scream at her in the entryway. I watched her walk up the stairs to the bedroom without another word. I did not sleep a wink that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, the darkness pressing down on my chest, leaving nothing but a hollow, freezing void inside. Vanessa was fast asleep, her soft breathing filling the room. But I could not shut my brain off. The image of the motel was burned into my retinas. Vanessa and that stranger. The shadows in the window. The betrayal. It was spreading through my veins like poison, paralyzing me. By morning, I was done. As soon as the sun came up, I made a decision. Today was the day. No more hiding. No more lies. "We need to talk," I said, my voice raspy from lack of use. Vanessa was sipping her coffee at the kitchen island. She looked at me with a vague sense of fatigue, like she'd been expecting this conversation but was too bored to have it. "About what?" Her tone was so casual it made me question reality for a second. Did she really not know that I knew? "About us, Vanessa." I stared right at her, trying to find a shred of guilt. She silently set her mug down on the quartz counter and leaned back. "Fine," she said shortly. Her expression tightened slightly. "Let us talk." I felt the adrenaline spike, fight or flight kicking in. I reached into my pocket, pulled out her phone, which I swiped while she was in the shower, and slid it across the counter. Vanessa just stared at it. "I know what's going on," I said slowly, enunciating every syllable. "I saw the texts, and I saw you last night." She blinked. Her face barely moved, but the light in her eyes dimmed. She snatched the phone and set it aside, face down. "So, what are you going to do?" Her voice was ice, detached. "You want to talk about it?" I was fighting to keep my voice from cracking, the rage boiling over. "Talk? About what?" She looked at me with defiance. "You already know everything. What's talking going to change?" That hit me harder than the cheating. Her calmness was the cruelest part. She was not going to apologize. She was not going to explain how we got here. She was just confirming the facts like it was a business transaction. "Why?" I whispered, the tension threatening to snap me in half. "Why would you do this?" Vanessa sighed, closing her eyes for a second. Then she opened them and looked at me like I was a stranger she'd met at a bus stop. "You were gone, David. Always working. Always somewhere else. I got tired of being alone in this big house. I got tired of waiting. I needed something that made me feel alive again." Her words cut through the air like a serrated blade, lodging straight in my chest. I stood there, paralyzed, unable to process the audacity of what she was saying. It felt like a bad dream, a nightmare I could not shake myself awake from. I had grinded for years for her, for the kids, for this family. I took the extra shifts, I chased the promotions, I did everything to ensure they never had to worry about a mortgage payment or tuition. And now she was flipping the script and blaming me for being away, ? "So that's your justification?" I asked, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. My hands curled into fists at my sides. "You found some guy to jump into bed with because I was working my ass off to pay for this life?" Vanessa shrugged, not even bothering to fake remorse. "I was just tired, David." "That's not what you think." Yeah, we had a fling, but the details do not matter. It just happened. It just happened. I shouted, my patience finally snapping like a dry twig. How can you stand there and say it just happened? You nuked our entire family for a cheap thrill. Vanessa stood up, calmly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and looked me dead in the eye. Our family fell apart a long time ago, she said, her voice terrifyingly steady. You just refused to see it. You thought the paycheck, the nice house, the status, you thought that replaced everything else. Love, attention, actual connection. You were wrong. Her words sounded like a sentencing hearing. Everything I had built, everything I had fought to protect, suddenly felt worthless. She was not begging for forgiveness. She was not saying we could fix it with therapy. There was no regret in her eyes, just a cold detachment. I felt the ground beneath my feet turn into quicksand. You've been lying to me for months. I whispered, my voice cracking. I trusted you. I thought we were partners, that we could weather any storm. But you just threw it all in the trash. Vanessa stepped closer, looking at me with a mix of pity and defiance. It was your choice, David. You chose the career. I chose to feel alive again. And now you want to villainize me for trying to be happy? I could not listen to another word. The rage was still there, vibrating in my hands, but something deep inside me just went dark. I did not want to scream anymore. I did not want answers. The clarity was brutal. Our life, our marriage, this happy family. It was all a facade that had just collapsed. Get out, I said quietly, staring at the floor. Vanessa did not argue. She turned on her heel and walked to the front door. She did not look back. She did not say goodbye. There was just the heavy thud of the door closing, sealing the end of a decade. I stood in the empty living room, the silence of the suburbs rushing back in to fill the void. The quiet I had always appreciated now felt suffocating. I sat on the edge of the sofa for hours, long after the sound of her engine faded down the street. My brain was stuck on a loop. It's over. The loneliness I had been trying to outrun finally caught up with me. I knew Vanessa was not coming back. Whatever tether held us together had been severed by her choices. The next few days passed in a haze. I moved through the house like a ghost, waking up in a king-sized bed alone, walking through hallways that used to echo with the kids' laughter. It all felt wrong. The walls of the house, once a symbol of my success, now felt like evidence of a crime scene. Fast forward 6 months, and the divorce was finalized. It was surprisingly clinical. Vanessa did not fight for the house. She did not want the colonial or the memories attached to it. We split the assets like we were dissolving a failed business partnership, not a marriage. She got primary custody, and I became a weekend dad. Every Friday when I picked up Mia and Noah, I put on a brave face. I wanted to be the rock they needed, the strong, loving father regardless of the wreckage behind us. But kids are perceptive, especially Mia. She'd look at me with those big eyes and ask when mommy and daddy were going to be friends again. I'd just tighten my jaw and say, "We still a family, sweetie, just a different kind of lineup now." Vanessa kept her distance. Our communication was strictly limited to logistics, pickup times, Dr. S appointments, school fees. She treated our past life like a sunk cost, something to be written off and forgotten. Then, one weekend, while we were watching a movie, Mia climbed onto the couch next to me and whispered, "Mommy cries at night a lot. She says she misses you." The words hit me right in the gut. For a second, I felt a flicker of the old hope, the old pain. But I knew better. You see, not unring a bell. Vanessa made her play, and I had accepted the outcome, however painful. The sanctity of what we had, the trust, the loyalty was gone. I stayed in our old house in Connecticut. It became my sanctuary, my man cave, the place where I started rebuilding from zero. It was not easy. Learning to be alone at 30-something was not part of the plan. But slowly, the sting faded. The memories of that night, of her leaving, stopped keeping me awake. They became just scars, part of my history, but no longer controlling my future. I still see Vanessa around town sometimes, at the grocery store or a school event. We do not talk, just a polite nod. Our worlds have drifted apart, like continents separating. And honestly, I've made peace with it. Life moved on. Step by step, I learned how to be David again. Not the husband, not the provider, just me. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.